She has the link.
Can't make you the host, so I have to make Sophie the host.
Oh, okay.
Because you have to be on our account.
Ah, okay.
So she comes in and I will make her host.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody had a good 4th of July. What a weekend. It was unbelievable. Not always, as we all know, it's not always like that. Hello, Bruce. Good morning, Bruce. We're just getting started, Bruce, so no worries. All right, I guess we will call to order the meeting. Thank you all for coming. Sorry for the many delays over the last month. I know it's been tough to get together, but we are, but we're here, so that's good. Let's see. Yeah, I guess I'll do my usual spiel. This is a public meeting. Minutes are being taken. If you have questions, comments, please direct them through me as the chair at the moment, and we'll try to keep things moving. Yeah, I guess since we do have everyone, but I will try to remember to do this today. Since we will not have Bob Perkins is unable to attend today, and Margie Gross also unable to attend, so we will make Tom the voting member today. Thank you, Tom.
Margie, an alternate?
Margie is an alternate, yes.
She's not coming today?
She's not coming. And Bob is a voting member. So, okay. Any public input on non-agenda items before we get going? Mr. Thompson.
Well, I'll wait till Steve returns for one comment I have. I'm curious to know what role the town comprehensive plan has in determining town policy and practices. And this is really a question for Sophie.
Sophie is now joining us. I see her on the Zoom. I was going to try to prop up my computer here. Hold on a second.
Sorry, I just.
Good morning, Sophie.
I couldn't hear you.
Sophie, good morning. This is Elliot.
Hey, Elliot, how are you?
Okay, thank you. I'm curious to know what role the town comprehensive plan has in determining town policy and practices.
What role the comprehensive plan has in determining policies and practice?
That's correct.
Wow.
As it relates to, I'm not sure I understand your question. Sorry.
Say it again. What role does the comp plan play in town government, in setting priorities and things like that for as a guiding document? What role does it have, I guess?
So my understanding, and I will double check that and provide you with a better answer, but my understanding is that the plan is kind of a guideline of what overall the town wants to do. We actually talked about it at the last select board, thinking that maybe it was time to revisit it, because I think it's over 10 years old now, and a lot of things have changed. So I would say that's the general plan for how we want to go about, managing the town, what projects we want to put on priority. And then on a yearly basis, the select board has a priorities meeting where we select a number of projects which we put on the priorities list, which will be receiving the attention of the select board for that year. And last year in August, we had a workshop, which is public, and we selected 22 priorities, which is a lot of work to be done for just 5 people. So this year is going to happen, I think, also at the end of August or September. And that's where it becomes more operationalized, if you will. So if you think of the comprehensive plan as a strategic tool, and as the priorities list of the select board more like an operational plan, annual project management, that's how that's the articulation between those two. But that's my understanding, and I want to make sure I give you a proper message. I will double check with the real powers that be, and bring it back.
No, I think that's my understanding in my limited experience in Camden. I think that's perfectly sums it up. It's a guiding document, sort of a high level, 30,000-foot view. And then there's, of course, the charter, which is sort of a management, document. And the comp plan is reviewed periodically. I think is it every 10 or every 20 years? I know there is a structure for when it's reviewed, and I thought it might be 20.
Yeah, but so if you think about, how we get more and more questions about climate change, about electric vehicle, when we see more and more people interested in managing natural resources, when there's more interest in pedestrian safety and having more bikes and more racks and more, all kinds of things are moving faster than 20 years, I think. So it may need to be revised earlier than the 20-year mark. But thanks, Josh, for your input. You know those things better than me. I'm ashamed.
No, not so much.
So I think I can add some to that also. Several years ago, when we as the Harbor Committee were developing our work plan, we used the comp plan as our guiding document in creating our work list. I don't know if you recall that, but there were several categories, and we prioritized a work plan based on that.
Okay, of course, I have a reason for asking that question, and our current comprehensive plan is dated June of 2017. On Chapter 23 of the comprehensive plan, there is a section called the Harbor, and states, the Harbor Committee is responsible for the master mooring plan for annually reviewing use of space at head of the harbor and assuring a wide variety of boating opportunities to the public, exploring supplemental sites for dinghy and other small boat tie-ups, and helping to assure public facilities, including facilities for access to the harbor, are maintained and improved. Those are Harbor Committee responsibilities described in the comprehensive plan. I have no recollection of ever being involved in any discussions regarding a master mooring plan. Does anyone here have any experience with that?
No.
There is a master mooring plan. There is a plan.
Yeah. But it's maintained by the harbor master. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would think
And the harbor clerk.
if the committee is responsible for the master mooring plan, that the committee members would have some knowledge of it and understanding of that plan. And I don't think we've ever talked about anything like that. So I just came across that and thought it was interesting.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question in terms of how, I guess to Elliot's initial point, how much the comp plan is. I mean, that's sort of the verbiage in the comp plan almost lays it out like a task list, job duties. And I don't really think that's not my interpretation of what the comp plan is sort of doing, but that might be something that we do want to revisit a little bit with the select board as our advisees, sort of clarifying how the comp plan's directives and our directives sort of come together. I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a great point, and I think it's timely because, as you know, we have 2 new select board members, so it's probably questions they have as well. So
Yep.
I'm happy to Josh, I'm happy to put this one on my docket and
Awesome.
get back to you. These are all excellent questions, and I don't have an answer.
Cool.
But yes,
That's great. Thank you.
I'll bring it back to the Harbor Committee. Thank you.
All right, the select board.
Okay, I'd like to, yesterday I was over at Steamboat Landing and I saw Harbor Master Pixley in action helping I believe it was a recreational boater, is that right, Steve?
Correct. He actually does work on one of the islands on the second island chain out next to Great Spruce. But but I think he wasn't working at that point, but yeah.
Right, it was a private boater who had a problem with a fouled prop, I believe. And Steve was down in the water at the prop in his wetsuit, and he cleared the fouling line from the prop, and he helped those people get on their way. So I thought
Well
that
done.
was nice to see.
It was one of those ones that was kind of like a half inboard outboard. You know, the
Inboard, outboard,
engine-
yeah.
The engine's inside, but the prop and everything.
And out,
yeah,
quick drive, whatever you call it, yeah.
Which I think are crazy.
Any other, Bruce, you have a non-agenda item?
Yes. The Rising Tide Committee
Yes.
of the Camden is having a basically public presentation on July 13th at 7 PM, and it's available by Zoom. And I don't have the details, but it's open to the public, and I can send everybody a link, but most likely I won't be able to attend.
Okay.
Are you? So you could represent, okay. Are you going to be out there, or are you going to be on?
I'm going to be physically there.
Oh, okay, good. I will be,
I will be representing the select board because Bob cannot attend, so I'll be there.
That's going to be presented by the gentleman from NOAA, right?
Right.
yeah.
Can you sort of be our rep to that, Tom?
Yeah, I'll take some notes.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'll most likely be out cruising, and if
for you.
I'm anywhere near internet,
Don't be. If you're off cruising. No, but that's great that you mentioned that. That sounds like a really good event. I would encourage everybody to attend if you possibly can, either in person or on Zoom.
Where is it?
It's at the Yacht Club
Yacht Club.
on July 13th
Josh,
at 7.
When my colleagues on the harbor committee speak, can you guys be closer to the mic? Because sometimes it's hard for me to hear you.
Yep. Can you guys, when you speak, can you just grab the mic and just talk right into it?
Those mics, they're not very good. You need to really speak in front of them. Thank you.
Yeah, so that would be, that's a great event. Awesome. Everybody go if you can. Elliot?
Two quick questions for Harbor Master Pixley. What is the current town capacity for dinghy storage?
Dinghy storage,
Tie-up.
dinghy type, yeah. So when you say dinghy, you mean small boats, doesn't necessarily kayaks.
Aircraft that are permitted as dinghies by the town.
Yeah, 200.
That's our capacity.
Well, in the past, besides the last 2 years, we've always had 180 permits that we gave out. So the last 2 years, we ran out of 180. We'd never done that before. 2 years in a row, we've run out, and we don't have any. We actually, literally, we don't have the stickers to give out. So we ordered 50 more. We ordered 20 more last year. This year, we ordered 50 more. So 180, what's 180 and 50? 230. So right now we're at 230, and because of the 2 extra new racks at Lake Beach, and now the new rack at the end of Marine Ave, we have enough spots for them. If you go down to where the falls are, and right in front of my office, it's already at close to capacity. You can, if folks get a little more educated on tying their boats up with looser lines, you can fit more in there. And once in a while, someone's going to have to, do a little bit of maneuvering to get to their boat because it's so packed. It's kind of like the Bight at Key West, where you got to walk past 4 boats to get to yours. Everyone's used to it there. We're not used to it here. But that's why I have now introduced, I guess it's about 55 new spots, physical spots with those 3 racks. And I'm
Those
looking.
are permitted, those, you have to get a permit and
They're
everything.
permitted. Yep. There's a
Same permit.
same permit. And again, it seems like just because of the nature of those racks and where they are, the kayaks and the light canoes and the blow-up paddle boards are being put there because they can take them out and then walk them across the beach or just drag them to get to the water. The heavier ones are going where they always used to, either Steamboat Landing or in front of my office or on that long section north of the finger floats.
Do you know the number of kayak, canoe, paddleboard craft that are permitted as opposed to motorized dinghies?
No clue.
I propose that we consider, the town consider having a separate permit for those.
We should. We do have a, we do. 'cause
Well,
it's a
we-
different fee.
We do have a separate fee, but let's make sure we're clear on that. You have a separate fee for a vessel that does not have an engine.
Right.
So you might, I would say 85-90% of those lie into those, Elliot, as kayaks. But you may have a small, very light little dinghy that's just got oars. But yeah.
So we could get that data. If you want that data, you could get it from Liz Lowe.
Yeah, you guys made it, the select board
Yeah.
said, let's move this to $75 if you don't have it, to encourage not having engines, and it's working because there's a lot of those permits going out.
Cool. Any other non-agenda items? I have one for Sophie. Sophie, could you give us an update on the steamboat landing commercial passenger vessel situation? Oh, I can't hear you.
You should hear me now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I spoke with Bob about it, and we tried to put it on the select board agenda, but we had too many items, and I exchanged messages with him, and it's going to be on the select board agenda on the 19th of July.
Oh.
And we're going to use the recommendations from the Harbor Committee, so just sit tight with us, and we should address it on the 19th of July.
Okay, perfect. The other,
We may come up with a kind of a mitigating solution to make sure that we don't support commercial usage, but that we find a way to accommodate them this season.
okay.
And also to get maybe, I don't know if we can give them a license. I don't know if that's opening a can of worms doing this, but
Okay.
Bob and I have been talking about it, and
No problem.
we want to find a solution that works for this year.
Great.
Doesn't open a permanent situation.
Perfect. We just it would be great to,
Recommendation that we don't use steamboat landing for commercial usage.
yep, just any, feedback and follow-up and sort of implementation or not of our recommendations is always, it's nice to know that someone's reading our reports. Okay,
So we find it very
item,
useful, because it helps us a lot with our jobs, so.
right. Elliot, one more, quick
One
one.
more quickly. Okay, I took it upon myself to perform a survey of conditions of the dock at Steamboat Landing. And I came up with this list of issues that I saw and some recommendations for action. There are photographs here. I can share this document with anyone who wants it. Generally, I have a statement, the general appearance in comparison with the docks at the town landing. The Steamboat Landing dock looks neglected and shabby. And I document, I back that up with these comments here. I ask that the Harbor Committee consider this subject and issue its own recommendations to the Select Board for action regarding Steamboat Landing
Well,
dock.
I think we have, in that we've done our report. I would say, send that around. I think we all love to see that. It's great research. I think let's wait for the select board to take its actions or not on the report that we did, of which, maintaining and improving both short and long term was part of it. So I don't want to do it as a separate item at this time. Let's let them do their work now that we've done ours, and then sort of see if we have some follow-up that we need to do.
Well, most,
Yeah, I would love to see that, and yeah, absolutely, it would be useful. But I also, Steve's input on that is also important to us. Josh, if I may, I have an agenda, non-agenda.
All right, let's hear it.
I saw Mark Haskell.
No, sorry,
No.
you didn't see Mark Haskell.
Oh, I can't remember his last name, I'm sorry. But we had a quick conversation about the budget money that he requested for the foam removal of the docks.
That's me.
Oh, Mark Siegenthaler,
That's
yeah.
me, Mark Siegenthaler.
Thank you so much. So Janice thought that this had already been committed, and she was following up with Audra. I think this fell a little bit through the cracks because of Audra's maternity leave, but she's coming back on Monday, and I will follow up with her and make sure that he gets the fund for those dogs that we removed and that now need to be disposed of.
Great, thank you, Sophie.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk meeting minutes from last time. Did anybody get a chance to read the meeting minutes?
Yes, Josh,
Ed, all right.
I did. There's an item, it says non-agenda items, and it says repairs have been completed on Steamboat Landing. I'm not clear as to what that means.
That was the replacement of the slabs that were, there were a number of slab replacements that were done. And we just sort of updated, Steve updated, I think, by text or photos or something.
Okay, and item 4, Sherman's Cove analysis, is sub-item number 1, environmental protection assigned to me. I don't recall getting that assignment.
I think that was assigned to me, and then I promptly didn't do it. But yes, it was assigned to me. I have it on my list. Environmental protections.
That's all I have.
Anyone else? If not, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections.
Although, okay.
With those corrections, yeah. We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Elliot seconds that one. Discussion, none. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. All right, I need to flip back to my agenda so I don't lose track of where I am. Okay, I want to actually jump off the agenda and just see if we can get a harbor master report, which we haven't had in a while. You did, informally, you did it before the meeting even started, I think. But how are we doing in the harbor? Do you want to give us a quick rundown now? Summer's here.
Well, you guys are all there as far as what we got for boat traffic and volume. It's pretty odd that I still have moorings that people haven't put boats on yet.
Yeah.
It just was a late start, and I really don't have an answer on why. And then as far as it could be fuel prices for sure. That's something that you have to factor in, and that has to do with if you go outside in the bay, there's much less boats traveling, moving around than in the past. So yeah, it could be that. I've had some issues with staffing. So about maybe 10 days ago, I had to, well, first of all, Dylan, who was going to be my pump-up boat operator / deputy harbor master, that was that new position where I was going to have this person for half the year, and then Parks and Rec, we're going to have him for half. He did a half at the winter, but as soon as it was summertime, he was down in my office, and because he was a schooner captain before, he saw the schooners leaving, and he started twitching, and he was like, I can't do it, Steve. I feel like a caged tiger is how I quote him. So he was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, okay. So then Sam Moskowitz walked into the position. I'd hired him about 6 years ago, and so he was 29, and he was great. He checked a lot of boxes. Great with people, great with the boats, smart. The only problem is he got his 4th OUI, and I had to let him go. So great kid, and hope he gets some help. So now here I am without an actual deputy, which is fine. I'm putting the extra hours in.
Leo not on this summer?
No, Leo. I was going to cut his hours back to about 1 day a week, mostly because he gets pretty tired.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he decided not to come in with that. So. Just a quick note on Steamboat Landing. I did have to repair the float number 1, where it connects to float number 2. Those get a lot of beating because they take all the weight of all of them when one's grounded and the other ones are pulling on it. They were built very well by Proc, but this is their 21st season, so that's one of the reasons they kind of starting to look a little shabby. But they're holding up. I literally through-bolted everything and got new bolts in there and tried to make it so it can at least last another season until we can look at it and either try to rebuild it or talk about with the select board about, it's time to bite the bullet and get new floats in. And if that's the case, these floats would work great to replace the long floats in front of my office that folks we used to, I call them fishermen turnover, but it's anyone wants to turn over their boat and get them out of the water. So that's just a quick plan. We obviously have to look at the base of the actual thing, but yeah, just doing work like that. Besides that, I mean,
How's the, one question I had was last year you talked about speed in the inner harbor especially. Is that a problem this year? Has that been a problem?
I'm trying to tackle the issue of is it just a pet peeve that I have, and I see people and I want them to slow down. I try to gauge if someone comes to me and says, hey, these people are going too fast. And like, no one does because they all want to go fast. So no one rats on the other person because they're going fast. So when is it my turn to say, okay, this is getting unsafe? And because if I'm representing the people and this asset, how do they want me to manage it? And one of the reasons I was asking, kind of talking to you guys, and I even talked to the town attorney, I've never actually issued an actual fine for speeding, but I've talked with Bill Kelly about how do I go about doing that? Because I keep saying, hey, I'll get in front of someone, I'll stop, and I'll say, hey, it's 5 miles per hour, you know, oh, was I going too fast? And we talk, and I keep telling it over and over. So eventually, if they get a $100 ticket, maybe that'll slow them down. Mm-hmm. But I would like you guys to kind of look at it and say, well, you know, it's not an issue. Maybe it's me making the issue. I want to make sure that's not it. I don't want to be that harbor master that's getting old and crotchety, you know. Yeah.
But 5, you go quickly over 5 miles an hour without realizing it. And I think it's a lot of people are new boaters and they don't necessarily realize that they're going faster than 5 miles per hour. And it is a real safety issue, especially if we have more and more kayaks and dinghies in the harbor.
Yes. Well, that's Sophie thinks that is when, gives me the merit and gives me my own private voice that says, hey, I keep telling all my deputies, just in a nice way, tell everyone, when you see someone, tell them to slow down. And if you see someone acting recklessly, that's when you go after them and say, well, you know, I'm going to tell you this one time, you cannot do that. Because there's a difference between going a little fast and then, whoa, what is that guy doing? You know, so
I would also maybe you can hail them on the radio and remind them of the 5 miles per hour road, because then everybody will hear it.
yes.
That could be also a way to kind of put pressure on people might be mindful about it.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. And I do have my deputies do that, but we could do that more to just let people know.
Do that more, because that's a good way to
Get it out there.
let
Yep.
people know, there's a rule, you're breaking the rule, and to let everybody know about the
Excellent note.
all of us.
Yep.
That, slow is pro. That's how I learned to dock my boat. Slow is pro.
Good. Yeah. So as far as the report, that's about it. I mean, the new dock system at the head of the harbor, where the Mary Day and Louis R. French are, was a seamless transfer, and they all love it. I'm talking about possibly putting a T off of that. As soon as you walk down off of the Library Park, I call it the Library Park float, but it's the head of the harbor float system for Angelique, Louis R. French, and Mary Day. And I've talked to all of them, and I said, look, what if we propose to put a small L off that, 10 foot wide, just like the floats that are there, and they would beach out at low tide, and we could design something about 10 foot wide and actually have kayak storage on those floats.
Interesting.
This way, folks could come down, get their kayak, get their little basket, their picnic basket, go out to Curtis Island or whatever, and we could fit about 30 more kayaks out right there.
What would that do to parking?
I don't know. That's why the thing is, the whole idea is if you can do that for folks that live in town, right? So now they're not going to be, the folks that are close to town would be like, great.
Missing parking, yeah.
They could take their bicycles down and come down, park their bikes, whatever, and then you're actually serving the public a good way, and you're not putting an impact on parking. Not all of them are going to do. I would say some of them are going to take advantage of it and still want to park, but.
Cool. What about the commercial operations all going well? We have a new Louis R. French owner this year. She's doing well. I saw her at incredible docking on Sunday. I think it was awesome. Becky's a great captain, and so far so good. Nice.
The fishermen, again, the fishermen, you guys know the deal there. They go, and the ordinance is very vague on the use of the fisherman area, but since there's only 3 fishermen, 4 max, that are actually fishing, I let them park their boats there overnight. It doesn't say I can't, doesn't say I should, and I just say, look, you guys, don't fight over it. You kind of work it out. And it looks good because the people come, fishermen, and they take their pictures, and so it looks nice. And a couple fishermen that don't do that fish mostly at a Rockport, they come here and they start kind of gnawing at me like, well, we want to come in, and those boats are there. I was like, well, call them up. Their cell phone, and if you need the spot, and then. So I'm working that out. It's been a 10-year thing.
Who are the fishermen that are active?
Well, the active ones are Toby, Barney, Appleton, Toby Winkelhofer, and the 2 Scott brothers. This time of year they're just getting done with the moorings. All that's, and they're starting to fish out of Rockport. And then you've got the 2 Bradstreets, Mark and his son Kent, who are very active. So yeah.
Cool.
Steve, regarding your staffing, have there been job postings soliciting people?
Yeah. Well, so thanks, Elliot. The harbor department has been put in charge of the public restrooms. So now I actually have someone coming in the mornings. Rick Seibel is coming in early in the morning, doing a nice clean, and then I have a young man, 20, coming in doing 12 to 4, and he's the new harbor and landing attendant. So he'll do a couple checks on some moorings and issues, the public launch ramp, the public swim float. He just does a quick check, then he comes back, checks the bathrooms. He's basically doing that, and then that would be Alden Lewis, Jeff Lewis's son, and he's doing a great job. This is probably his 2nd week. I have another. So this is then another guy named Nick who works for the highway said I'll do weekends, and he started doing weekends, and he's doing a great job. He may not do the whole summer, so I'm actually talking. I have another kid who applied, and that application process is going through. So Janice and Marlene are like keep printing out these applications because they're like, how many people are you going to hire? I'm like, as many as I have to get that covered. As far as to take over Jimmy Leo's spot, now that Sam's gone, I get 2 guys that are applying, actually 3 guys, and we're going through the application process right now. So I'm just putting some extra time into to cover it until we can get that set up. But everything's going good.
So do you have the restrooms at Lake Beach also?
No, negative. No, the Parks and Rec are still going to take care of that.
You just have public
For now, I just have that public landing, yeah, which we never had, but I was asked to take over it, and so.
They get a lot more use than Lake Beach.
Yeah, they get a lot more use. So
Steve, I was out on Curtis Island over the weekend, and those ties you put in there are nice.
the haul outs.
Yeah. But the one on the right, it's binding up.
Because of the seaweed.
So you can't pull it back and forth.
That's always been an issue. Yeah, there's a lot of seaweed there, and I'm gonna.
Is that what it is, seaweed?
The seaweed.
Does it get twisted?
I think it's the seaweed that gets it all messed up. So I have Alden. I told Alden, and I'll have him even start pulling more. And at low tide, it's good to everyone to get out there. We should have a party there, and everyone, slowly just kind of pulls all the seaweed out, so we have that a nice avenue to get in where it doesn't choke it like that.
A lot of seaweed there.
There is a lot of seaweed there.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to the meat of the agenda, which is a little bit loose, I'll be honest. But we now have 2 tasks, I guess. One which was previously assigned, and one which has been handed sort of to us. So the Sherman's Cove analysis of what protections are in place for Sherman's Cove. That's something the Select Board asked us to do towards the end of last year. And once we got through our other tasks, that's first on the docket. The other is the second agenda item, I guess, which was the moratorium that has been passed by the voters for piers, new residential piers in the outer harbor and coastal harbor. Slightly different start times, but let's not get too deep into the weeds on that. So I think we should take these separately as separate items, but I do think I think that some of them will overlap. in my limited research, we found some overlaps. So, sort of to the minutes question that came up, we had last time talked about breaking this down into a couple of different aspects. One was the regulatory protections that are in place for Sherman's Cove. One was the and that Mark, I think, was going to tackle that one. You probably did about as much as I did on that.
No, I did look at it.
And Margie looked at public access to Sherman's Cove, and she has done a report of sorts, which was great, some research there. And then I was going to tackle two items, public use of Sherman's Cove, and then finally the environmental protections of it. So I'm going to pull my laptop down here so I can see what I'm doing. Why don't we look at Margie's report, sort of, since I think she did the most and I appreciated it. You guys all got that in the thing, so we don't need to read it page by page. But basically, there are, a number of public access points in Camden, on Harbor Road, Marine Avenue, and Sherman's Cove Road. And I believe that is all. There's also a private access on Norm Vega, but I think we're really just talking about public access. In terms of, that's really it. The Sherman's Point public access has been a topic of some discussion at the select board level already, because there's some gates and growth out there. So that I want to be very careful that we don't let our analysis blend into somebody else's, which would be the planning board and the select board. We're really looking at the harbor side. However, for instance, where Sherman's Point Road ends, from there to the water, to the low tide mark, I think would be part of our purview. So we do have those three access points. Now, recently, there is a kayak rack at the end of Marine Avenue, which I did not know about, which is exciting. Yeah, so I think does anybody have any questions about Margie's research?
And is Sherman's Point Road marked as private at any point in its length?
I don't believe so.
I don't know, I don't go down there.
Yeah, I go down every once in a while, but I don't think it is.
The town does plow it.
Yeah, no, it's a public road. It is definitely a public road. What else can we say about public access? Obviously, public access via water is unobstructed. I know there are a number of kayaks and things of that nature that go through. Oh, one thing I did want to do, just to be clear, 'cause this is one little bit of research that I did, was talk about sort of scope of the what is Sherman's Cove. This will blend a little bit over. Let me see. I thought I'd put the sticky on this. For what we're talking about when we talk about Sherman's Cove. Anybody have that? It's in the Harbor and Waterways Ordinance.
It's in the ordinance, I couldn't tell you where.
Get it? I read
One
it.
point in time.
Read it just the other day. Here we go. It's in, oh boy, section 2, subsection C of Article 6, page 31. So Article 6, section 2, subsection C, item 8. Whew, gotta really dig for that one.
Is this Harbor and Waterways?
Harbor and Waterways Ordinance does reference no piers, wharves, pilings, bulkheads, marine railways, mobile vessel hoists, or any structure requiring a permit shall be constructed within that area of Sherman Cove, which lies northerly of a line commencing at a point on the shore where the northerly line of Marine Avenue intersects the harbor waters, to a point on the easterly shore of the cove where the northerly line of Sherman Point Road intersects the harbor line. So I guess I wanted to ask the committee, my read of this, I literally Googled and dug through everything I could find for a description of Sherman's Cove, because I mean, here we are, we're being asked to analyze this. What are we analyzing? This is the only reference that I can find to what is Sherman's Cove.
You're saying that designates
Yes.
that area.
That area. Because we say, let's do an analysis of Sherman's Cove.
Yep.
Well, there's a difference between Sherman's Cove
Yeah.
and the outer harbor. They're two different things,
Yep.
you know? So,
No, I agree. That's the only thing I've seen in the years.
is there anything you found as well?
I mean, residents will say Sherman's Cove, but outside of those two, it's,
So for the purposes of a protected area, and that's really what we're talking about, protections, I would say for the scope of our analysis, we should limit it to the boundaries of that area.
Well,
Do we agree with that?
So, to keep this straight, it's from Marine Ave all the way around to Sherman's Point.
And a line, if you make a line between the two.
Look at, that's Marine Ave, this is Sherman's Point Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you drew a line across there, you have this area.
That is correct. That is,
The only access point in there is the Norumbega Drive,
which is a private access.
which is private.
It's interesting because there is a public access on Marine Ave. And this, it says,
But that would include Marine Ave, right?
well, this says
The
northerly
side
line.
of Marine.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of excludes,
Marine Avenue.
right.
So the point is, nothing can be built from Marine Ave all the way around.
Except for the very point.
that requires a permit.
That requires a permit, so that's where it's gotta, we have to be very careful with our language. And,
Fox, you mentioned where Sherman's Point
So
Road,
if you drew a dotted
to the
line
water.
across there, this is the area.
is that at all clear where that point is?
I think so. I think it
Because
is.
The town access is,
It's a muddy,
is
it's a muddy area.
A muddy
Yeah,
area
it's,
off Sherman's Point Road, and Sherman's Point Road eventually turns into, somebody's driveway.
Right.
I don't know who owns it now, but.
well, I think, and so actually, that's a very good point, Richard, is that, and that's where our analysis and the select board's discussions will kind of come together a little bit, because they have been discussing in public meetings that Sherman's Cove Road access to the harbor, and that there's a gate there, there's some bushes, there's all kinds of
At some
stuff.
point, Sherman's Point Road turns into somebody's driveway.
Correct.
And
that's clearly
I'm
not.
not sure that the Sherman's Point Road ever gets to the water.
Well, but it is supposed to. And that is what the
Oh,
select
it's
board has
supposed-
been, it is supposed to, so
Okay,
they
so
just.
the brilliant minds are working on this.
Exactly. People smarter than I, right? I just wanted to say, according to Margie's research, there's limited parking at the end, this is Sherman's Point Road. There's limited parking at the end of the T in the road. Small shrub-like trees block access to the shore. These trees clearly block access to the town-owned 25, I think she meant foot strip that was established as town ownership in 2008. No easy access to the shore here. Again, no markings indicate that this is public access. I noticed a water meter by the trees. There's a granite property marker placed by a surveying company. It was recommended in 1994 that the town have performed a formal land survey. I could not find that was ever done. Notably, Sherman's Point had once been totally publicly owned and was known as Thorndike Park, which I did not know. It's cool. But I think for the purposes of our scope, let's, chat something, make sure there's not something there. Okay. I think Sophie might have to leave in a few. I think for the purposes of our scope, let's use that description that's in the Harbor and Waterways Ordinance, so we know kind of what we're talking about when we talk about Sherman's Cove analysis.
Geographic bound.
The geographic bounds, exactly. Marine Avenue to Sherman's Point Road, a line between the two, and of course encompassing the shore on the northern side of it.
Did I hear you say that Sophie is departing soon?
Yes, I think she has to leave at about 9.
Sophie, are you with us?
I am sorry, I had a conflict. Can you repeat?
Okay, but before you depart, regarding Sherman's Cove, I have a question. In the minutes, the Select Board meeting minutes of July 6th, 2021, exactly 1 year ago today, there is the statement here, authorization to expand, and I believe that should have read expend, up to $20,000 to implement the harbor access study findings for Sherman's Cove. Implement harbor access study findings for Sherman's Cove. What is that about, $20,000, and what is the harbor access study findings?
Excellent question. So July 6th, I think, was my first board meeting. I was just elected, so I probably didn't know a thing. Can I get back to you on this, Elliot? Do a little bit of research and make sure I provide you with a correct answer?
Okay, it's in the meeting minutes of July 6, 2021, action items, item 7, action items, sub-item C. Authorization to expend up to $20,000.
I think if my memory is correct, but again, I will double check. The issue was raised by Allison that there is some public access along Sherman's Cove, but the markers are not there. We needed to do a little bit more research to make sure that we could find them and that we would invest some money to restore them so that the public could have access. And I think we also talked about having a map somewhere where the public could see where the public access, different access points are around Sherman Cove. I'm speaking from memory. I would like to look into that a bit more with more time so I can provide you with a correct answer. But that's my memory. Maybe Steve, you know that too?
Yeah, I can just comment. So you've got Harbor Road. You've got a public access at the end of Harbor Road. Then you've got a public access at the end of Marine Ave, which Sid Lindsley, God rest his soul, really pushed to have those beautiful steps put in place. And he fought with conviction against the then owner of that property that was trying to make it so the public couldn't use that access. So Marine Ave, we still have that. It's a great little spot, and I think we can expand on it. But over the last 20 years, we definitely have been a little remiss, and we've lost some access because now you've got that at the very end of Sherman's Point Road, which I used to plow the first year I was harbor master because I had a plow route and I worked for I didn't work for the Snowball then, I worked for Public Works. And so the town has a public right of way, and I think we lost an access point there partially.
We're talking Marine Ave.
No, we're talking out of the three in Sherman's Cove, Harbor Road, Marine Ave, and Sherman's Point Road. The Sherman's Point Road all the way to the end where it's that shallow area at the very end before you get to the point where Susan Allen used to own. That area, we lost an access or partial access to that. And I think what happened was Allison and other people were like, hey, we need to get a grip on these before we lose more. And that's what I think that vote was, to try to figure out how we can, get our claws into that so the public could save their access points.
Yeah, and it's yeah. Okay, so I will do a little bit more research and provide an answer to the Harbor Committee at our next meeting. So
Awesome.
perfectly, yeah.
Great.
But I think that's along those lines to make sure that we preserve those access points, actually protect them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
make sure that they're known also to the public.
So I think in terms of, so I think we have our scope, we have our, what we're talking about now. I think we have, Margie has pretty well accomplished the public access portion. I would say that, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we found the only regulatory
We have,
protection.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
literally it. There's nothing else.
For Sherman's Cove,
Yeah.
yes, but the other part, I think, of regulations were for the moratorium.
Yeah, but let's shelve that for just, we'll get to that a little later. But so, I think we have identified, because again, we're being asked to do an analysis of, the protections that are in place for Sherman's Cove. Recommendations, we'll see if we make recommendations. We were asked to do an analysis, and so, I think we can we want to be careful. We have a lot on our plate, so we want to be careful that we don't take on too much. So, and then lastly, environmental, again, I cannot find any other, environmental and regulatory, I'm realizing, just go together, because there are no environmental protections for Sherman's Cove in particular, other than Section 2, subsection C8, or whatever it is, as far as I can tell. So, public use, well, actually, no, so I think we've expended environmental. Public use, though, and Steve, I appreciate you being here, because I think that public use would include moorings in the area that we're now talking about. There are moorings inside of that line?
Yes, it gets, as you know, or may not, it gets very shallow, very fast in that area. I'm sure just at the point, there are a few, but yeah, there are a few more. It gets so shallow so fast that it's basically unusable.
Are you have you fully utilized that resource for moorings as much as you can? Meaning, could you ever put moorings in further into the shallow?
I mean, yeah, you could put some really shallow boats in there. I have not, mostly because after reading this right when I got here, I realized that basically the verbiage shows that some group of people that was representing the will of the people, if you would, really was like, we don't want to really overuse that. And I'm glad that you guys are bringing it back up, because a lot of folks do say to me, that's such a great spot, and it's not like a new thing. Well, let's face it, more and more folks are coming to this great area, and so there's impinging more on our asset. And so it's good that we're looking at this and saying, hey, we got to really figure out, let's take this to the next step, or let's see what the founding fathers a long time ago thought. But yeah, so the answer is we could put some more boats in there. I choose not to, mostly because of that verbiage.
Okay.
And there hasn't been that great a push for that,
Mm-hmm.
So
one aspect of the public use of that area that I think we do need to address is there have been two floats put in there in recent years. One on the Marine Avenue side, and one on the Sherman's, and that was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
And just real quick, there's also another float that I let the yacht club use, because all it is a non-engines for the small kids for their small boats.
And that's really a mooring. It's tied to a mooring.
It's two moorings keeping it so it doesn't swing. But yeah.
But there have been two floats put on residential properties there in recent years. One, like I said, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and then there was one just this past spring even, that was put off on a property on Sherman's Point Road.
So these are floats that aren't connected to a dock or?
These are floats that are connected to a dock.
Oh, okay.
So,
Refer to these as piers, so we don't get the confusion with.
Good idea. Yeah, piers and floats.
well, it was deemed to not be a pier. It was deemed to be a float. And
Can we keep some distinction between Inner Harbor floats, the yacht club float that's out there, and floats attached to the land?
All right, how about if we call it land-based floats?
there we go.
Land access floats.
Land access floats.
Land access
There we
floats.
go.
That's good.
So there were two land accessed floats installed in recent years inside of this Sherman's Cove zone. And that is actually what precipitated the request for us to do this review. There was a lot of attention put on during the review, this verbiage here that said no piers, structures, blah, 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 or any structure requiring a permit shall be constructed within that area. The select board, okay, so we've lost Sophie, I think. Make sure that, yeah. So I can take this back down. The select board did approve both of those things. There was a legal discussion that was had, and they approved it. I think I know that during the discussion, there was a lot of comments about ambiguity in this
No.
write-up. Ambiguity. What did it say? So, any structure requiring a permit is one of the things. So, I do think the public use needs to include land-based floats accessed
But
from
I
land.
think the point on all that was the fact that a float with a ramp from shore is a temporary structure, which did not require a permit.
But it did require a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers, which was,
It did.
yep. I believe so. Maybe I'm misspeaking there, I'm not sure, but my point is, that is a public use, residential use, and, I think we should, so I guess what I would say is, in terms of our analysis, we have determined that there is some ambiguity in the wording of this that has allowed, at least two public use structures to be implemented into the harbor.
How are they public? They're coming
Oh,
from
good point.
private.
That's a good point.
They're private.
They're private use, yeah.
I can't go over and park my boat there and walk up and down the ramp, not
That's true.
attracting the ire of the owner.
So I guess we should probably, right, we probably shouldn't just say public use, we should say public and private use. But I do think we need to, yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. Like, those are completely private. Yeah, private and public use. Okay, what else? Yes, sir.
I have a question here, and I don't say this just to detract or distract from the topic, but I see protection for Sherman's Cove mentioned in the ordinance. I see it mentioned in the comprehensive plan. What is it about Sherman's Cove that needs protection? What is Sherman's Cove being protected from? What is this about? I have trouble getting my head around it. Why is Sherman's Cove getting this protection?
I would think it's from overdevelopment.
So there was a number of years ago, there was a proposal to put a railway system in Sherman's Cove. This was in 95 or something like this.
90.
That started as some sort of pier, but
Yeah.
that got squelched very promptly.
Right, and then it was something about, and actually it's referenced in the comp plan, where they said, this is what led to, the comp plan says, a proposal for a railway system led to the need for more protections or a further examination of more protections.
Right, a controversy about the building of marine railways in Sherman's Cove seemed to indicate that the specific language of the Harbor and Waterways Ordinance did not thoroughly reflect the town's desire to protect Sherman's Cove as expressed in the ordinance. So they're saying the language was inadequate in the ordinance. The town's desire to protect Sherman's Cove. And, Mark says overdevelopment. So, okay. I just wonder what it is we're protecting from.
I mean, I know that it is, being a shallow area, it is a sensitive area.
And to couple with that, the state has made it so no shellfish can be taken from that area as well. No clamming allowed there anymore. And I don't know when that was put in place, but there's a ton of clams over there. You're not allowed to touch them.
Is that because of health issues?
I don't know.
Huh, I didn't know
Probably
that.
dates from the days of
I don't know.
Unregulated
So
sewage.
from the ordinance, I mean, it's clear that they just don't want piers built in Sherman's Cove.
We just approved 2 of them.
Well, we didn't, we approved,
From Marine
Yeah,
Ave.
not in that line that we just talked about, deep in the cove, the protected area, I'll call it.
Marine Ave.
But, Mr. Chairperson, my reception is saying stuff's stacking up for me.
Okay.
Pump out the stuff. Really appreciate the work you guys doing, and be in touch. I'm going to
Thanks,
go.
Steve.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Good luck with your staffing.
Thank you.
So I guess to kind of close the loop on this, I think what we have determined is that there is a stated desire via the ordinance, which was passed by the voters, to protect Sherman's Cove from development. That is a stated fact. There are limited protections in place for it, as stated again in this one section of ordinance, though I think it is also clear that our recent floats, land accessed floats, are proof that it does not, these protections do not prevent all development in Sherman's Cove, because they wouldn't have been approved if there was no development in that area. I mean, this could be a fairly short analysis because there's not much to it.
Exactly.
And but Margie has shown us the public access, which I think is great. Anything more? Because what I'm going to propose is that we develop this into a little analysis, a little report, just like the last one, but not nearly as long, based on this discussion and the research that's been done. And we would present it. Obviously, we review it at the next Harbor Committee meeting, and then we'll present that to the Select Board. Does that sound like a good path forward?
It does. I have a question regarding this prohibition of shellfish,
Yeah.
shellfishing in Sherman's Cove. Did you bring that up?
I didn't find it.
Or did Steve?
Steve brought that up.
He said it's state mandated.
Yeah, the state's or,
He said state.
And does anybody know when that
No.
might have gone into place? And
been around for a long time.
what department of the state should be contacted to?
DMR,
Who?
Fisheries.
Department of Marine Resources.
Do you want to reach out to them, Elliot?
Yeah, I'll do that.
They do more than worry about lobstermen.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know when and why that.
Sherman's Cove.
This,
First I'd ever heard of it, and I didn't find any reference to it in my research. So why don't we do that then? Why don't we develop our little report that says, because again, I want to be a little bit careful of mission creep. Say for Sherman's Cove, this is what we have. I'll work on that with you, Bruce, if possible, and we'll kind of develop that as a report for the next meeting, and we'll all review it and hopefully make edits or whatever at that meeting, and then present it.
So basically, what it's going to state is that per our ordinance, that there is no pier development in Sherman's Cove, and the only impact may be land-based floats.
Correct.
Yeah, because by ordinance, there's no way, well, it says it,
See, I remember talking to Jeremy when that first land-based float issue came up, and there was something about it that a property owner has a right to access the water. And there's something in here, and I've been trying to find it, but I haven't.
Yeah, there is something
In
about,
our ordinance or in planning?
no, that's
It's in the zoning ordinance.
Zoning, yeah,
Yeah.
which is vastly more voluminous
Yeah.
than.
and I feel like that might even be a state thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like if you have property on the harbor you have a certain
We
right
have a right
to a mooring or
Is this
something.
related to the riparian rights?
Yes.
yes,
It's under that topic.
yeah.
All right, any more on that? I want to keep, I mean, I think this can be this could be a one-page analysis, which is, be awesome. Because there really isn't much
Dream on,
to
it'll
it.
be fun.
I know, you've seen the way I write, Richard.
Could include Margie's notes in it.
Yes. Well, yeah, for sure, yeah.
It's already half written.
It's already half written, exactly.
And then fixed it.
All right, let's move on then to the topic of this pier moratorium that was passed by the voters in June in the outer harbor and the coastal harbor. And I think you guys know, because Janice sent it around, the start date for that is slightly different by the length of, I think it's like 2 weeks difference, but,
So, I was confused by that, and I'm just wondering if anybody else was. It was my interpretation that the moratorium was all predicated based on sea level rise.
At least that's one.
I thought it was public access.
That was the big, this is what we're voting on, is based on sea level rise. And then, when I read that, it's like, it seemed to cover every possible topic and issue.
Whereas.
Yeah.
So,
I gotta wear out that word, but then that's what lawyers do. This was clearly written by Joe Kelly.
I think my understanding was that they, yes, sea level rise was the precipitating factor or whatever for it. It also was the reason for the sea level rise concern was that our existing ordinance restrictions were such that they did not take into account sea level rise. So if you're building a new pier to the ordinance, to meet the ordinance rules, it's actually, you can only build so high, and it's actually not high enough now.
6 feet.
Yeah, so it's not high enough now for sea level rise, so it's going to be underwater.
And then 10 in the outer harbor.
6 and 10.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
that's
6 and
something
10,
like
okay.
that.
I
So,
mean, coastal harbor.
Coastal harbor.
Coastal, yeah, that's what I meant, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
So-
I knew what you meant. That's not what you said.
when we approved that pier in the coastal harbor, in talking with Gartley, Will Gartley, he explained the problem of a 10-foot-high pier. And what they had to do is slope it down slightly so that they could get the proper distance and have a ramp that actually worked. So,
Because there are ramp limits
right.
also.
Right. So, so anyways, that's the difference between a 6-foot height and a 10-foot height.
Right. Right, because
One
one
of the
impacts the
issues.
others.
Right, but he also said the 10 feet is a good thing because it allows better public access underneath it.
Underneath, that's another good point.
You can both walk and paddle underneath it.
Now, it is, I think a 10-foot pier in the coastal harbor, way out on Bayview Street, is a different visual impact than a 10-foot pier in the outer harbor where you're going to have, kayaks, like a lot of boats and all of that.
Which raises a question of why we would have a moratorium on the coastal.
Right. Right. If
I think this may be a reaction to the current two piers
Yeah.
proposed in Lincolnville.
Oh,
There's one up towards Duck Trap, which I think is fairly innocuous, but there's the other one south of a ferry landing that goes halfway across the bay.
Yeah, right, 300
Mild
feet.
exaggeration, please, don't take that literally.
Yeah, so I think, I think certainly basically, I think the reasons for this was,
I don't know.
I think the reasons for the moratorium, not that we should really, I guess, too concern ourselves with that, was the two pier applications. We had the one in the outer harbor, which we approved, and then the planning board approved, and then the one in the coastal harbor that was also, went through the same process. And so the town select board, because this was a select board generated item, said, whoa, time out, we need to take a pause. and they determined that it was an exigent circumstance.
Just a
And-
side note, remember the review of the Outer Harbor Pier? That is now a vacant lot. You tore that house down.
Did they really?
Yeah,
What was the name on that project?
I don't remember.
So are they gonna
It was-
tear
it was
it?
Shane Flynn's old house.
Yeah. Are they gonna just have a dock?
No,
Just have a pier?
No, they're build a mega mansion.
Take something. So in terms of our, again, the scope of this, is on the select board agenda, I think, for tonight, for the select board to talk about this and to hopefully give us some direction. So I don't think we need to spend too long today, but I think we need to know that it's coming. I think we need to know that this is coming. I guess I'll say two things on this. They made it retroactive to March when the discussion began. And there was sort of a legal reason why they had to do that. The fact of the matter is, it's now July.
I know.
And, and it's for 6 months. So one could put a lot of pressure on us to sort of, get this done immediately and hastily. And I'm going to push back a little against that one and say, we need some direction. We need some direction from the select board on what they want us to do, because we have not actually been tasked with this yet. We know we're going to be. I can tell you we are going to be. So I think we ignore it at our peril. But I think it will be coming, as Janice mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, moratoriums can be extended once. For an additional 6 months. And I believe that is by the vote of the select board, but I'm not positive on that. Might take a citizen vote. So my point is, we might have a little more time than,
Well, that 180 days gets them to the latter half of September.
yeah, right. It's just, we're not going to have anything really substantively done. So,
So my question is, what are we looking for here? How are we looking to change it? Are we going to eliminate the ability to build them? Are we going to change the parameters?
I think they're looking, from the discussions that I've listened to and followed, they are going to be, the purpose is to look and see if we need to make changes to the ordinance, to the Harbor and Waterways ordinance, to related to piers in the Outer Harbor and Coastal Harbor. So that means that they would come to us and they would say, okay, do a study, try to figure out what you guys think should be changed in the ordinance, specifically. And then it would go to probably the planning board, I would assume, and then the select board. And then finally the voters would be the ones who would do it. So Elliot,
Wasn't there a town vote on this issue?
on the ordinance,
On the
on the moratorium.
Moratorium,
Yes.
and that passed?
Yes.
And was it significant, like 900 to 300 or something like that?
I can't remember, but it did pass.
So it passed.
It passed.
So currently there is,
Probably overwhelmingly.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was this, is what was voted on, right?
Yep.
And what participation did the Harbor
But you wouldn't
Committee?
have known that it was this based on the ballot.
Absolutely not.
Not at all.
When I read that, I was like, oh my God, that's.
If you looked at what was on the ballot and you looked at this document, they're miles apart.
Putting this on the ballot would be the opposite extreme of ludicrousness.
Which is sort of what always happens with
So
ballot items.
either they want further restrictions on building piers and floats. If that's the intent, then,
Well, I think,
But what was on the ballot was.
I was very impressed by the engineers who made their presentation at building the,
Yeah.
because they actually said the way the cribbing is built and the way we're manufacturing this,
Build-
the Harbor
building what?
Road
What?
piers.
no, that
Pier
new pier out on
the-
Bayview Street, yeah.
Yeah, was it Bayview?
Yeah.
That if sea level rise is what you're concerned about, and that was addressed in his discussion, was that this can be retrofitted.
Right.
Pick it up, slide another
We
piece
can
of
pick
granite
it
on
up and increase the cribbing and therefore address the issue of future sea level.
So I think in terms
Whatever
of,
we do, it should go by Will Gartley.
Well, I was just going to say, so I
To
think,
get his commentary, because he knows more about this than
Right, and I
anybody
mean,
else in the world.
And it sounded like, wow, that makes sense, because if you're building it today, if 10 years from now or 20 years from now, we do have
right.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of moving this forward, what we ought to do is, if you guys can, listen in or on YouTube or whatever to the select board meeting tonight. But we'll also obviously get a report and direction back from Sophie as our liaison. I think that pieces that I see coming, I think we will want to invite Will Gartley and Bill, I forget his last, Bill Lane, to come in simply, and I say them only because they've done a lot of peers in the area, because they're experts and we can get their opinions, where it's not focused on just one peer. And then I think we will, but I think for you guys in terms of what's coming in the back of your, mind, is we will want to be looking to, do we want to recommend, in light of this moratorium, do we want to recommend any changes to the ordinance, wording changes to the Harbor and Waterways ordinance, which is really the only thing we have a say in, that we would then put forward to the select board, and they will do as they will with it. That's kind of the pieces that I see coming. Is that
You know, what would
missing
be
anything?
interesting, and I was thinking of doing this, I just never got around to it, but if we actually looked at the properties and how many properties can actually build piers.
Well, I think that's going to be part of it.
Someone did
But that's
that
current
in Outer
ordinance.
Harbor
Yeah.
A number of years ago, and at that point,
There's
I
like
don't
two.
know, there were two, and one of them's been taken.
And one of them's gone, yeah.
Unless there's,
Ordinance
some legalese that,
Yeah.
hasn't been analyzed in the ordinance.
But I think that will come into our review if we do go forward, because there's all things about separation and all of that, and so we'll have to review
There are
that.
really two aspects in the ordinance that I think we're going to be looking at. Is one, how far apart they have to be, the separation and all that stuff, and how high
Right.
the limitations. on
How wide and how high? Pretty much it.
And relative to the coastal harbor, there's probably, it's hard to say how many could be built out there. Probably quite a few if you had adequate
Resources.
financial resources.
Which people seem to have now.
Well, yeah, there are people, yeah. Just when you think people should,
Yeah.
couldn't be, have that much
It's
money.
like, oh, nobody would ever do that.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
What input did the Harbor Committee have to the creation of this?
None.
No.
Which is, that is the select board's right. We are an advisory committee. They have to ask us.
So, and we have an expectation that they're going to want us to have an opinion about this?
Not of the moratorium, but of,
Changes to the ordinance.
changes to the ordinance. That's all we can look at.
Yeah.
Moratorium exists, is what it is.
Changes to the ordinance.
so.
And I'm, yeah.
So I think, I don't think we need to beat this horse too much more.
What's the change to July about, from March to July? Did I understand that?
So it's a 6-month moratorium.
Yeah.
But it was retroactive to.
First discussion of
Their
it.
first discussion, and they first started talking about one in the Outer Harbor, so that's why that one has that. But then 2 weeks later, they started talking about one in the Coastal Harbor, so then that's why there's a slightly different start time.
It just shifted a couple of weeks or
Yeah,
something?
that's why they're both retroactive, but they're both 6-month moratoriums, which I think.
180 days to get the legalese
Yeah,
straight.
yeah, exactly.
Whereas,
Where it is, yeah. Thank you. Don't forget
So
that word.
our point is just that those are coming. We're halfway through them. We haven't really done anything because we have not gotten direction, though I think we have, because we've had this discussion. We have experience now with peer applications, so we are the right committee to be looking at this. So let's hold it there, and by the next meeting, I think that will probably become the primary agenda item. We'll go from there. Speaking of the next meeting, back to the agenda, the only thing left was upcoming reviews and tasks, and that is the only upcoming review and task to complete that agenda item. So what, let's see if we can schedule the next meeting and be a little more successful. And it was me, I know, that bumped this one.
So it'll be August 3rd, is it first Wednesday of the month?
Could be August 3rd, yeah. That might not be bad.
Josh, your availability to prepare for that the weekend before August 3rd?
I'll be busy that weekend,
Yeah.
but presumably the board will have items, no, I think that's fine. Are you guys good for Wednesday, August 3rd at 8 o'clock? Let's do it.
Yes,
What are we looking at, August 3rd?
August 3rd at 8 o'clock, right, in this fine location. Awesome. Anything else? We are adjourned. Thank you, guys. I know it's a little more of a free-form discussion today, but it was actually a good one.
Oh, man, it doesn't click right.
I don't think we don't have to vote on adjournment, apparently, which is nice.
Well, that's the question, does that?
Well, look at Google Earth.
Yeah,
There's a driveway, there's something that goes literally into the water, but that's a minor point.
But would Sherman's Cove? Here.
I don't believe so. I don't believe that's.
Yeah, I mean,
anyways.
It wouldn't matter, because they already have their fee.
Right.
Issue next time that I will have to go do my blood draw.
Reeds.
I might be a little late.
Yeah, at some
It's
point.
crazy there nowadays. They're only open 3 days a week.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. I go
I don't
every
know.
4 weeks.